Okay. Catherine Pure, EU reporter. There's been a lot of pressure on this issue coming from the Panama Papers and a lot of impetus for change. What does the Trump presidency and Brexit mean for progress in this area? Are we going to take a step back? Will the pressure be off? How can we keep the pressure on? Thank you.
Professor Stiglitz? I think maybe it will actually increase pressure because we've realized that globalization hasn't been working, and secrecy, the secret havens, are the darker side of globalization. And they are one of the reasons that globalization, only one of the reasons, but one of the reasons that globalization has not worked. And when people see this darker side of globalization, they got even more upset with it. And so I hope that there will be a greater resolve, particularly in Europe, for dealing with that.
The next question? Any other question? Yeah, please. Our colleague, Kerben, from Great Britain.
Yes, Professor Stiglitz, it's all very interesting what you said, but isn't a lot of this pressure on the Panama Committee and all the rest of it really because the European Union has run out of money, run out of other people's money, so therefore they're desperately trying to claw back from wherever they can. And of course, companies and individuals have the right to try and minimize their taxation that they've worked hard to earn. And they don't particularly like to hand it over to governments, which are generally corrupt and incompetent. And when you look at the European Union, we've got here that they haven't signed off the books in 20 years, or goodness knows what. So, isn't it sort of right that people should be able to try and protect or minimize the amount of tax they pay? Because otherwise you're handing over to Ludo governments who will just then spend and waste more.
Okay, you made your point.
Okay, so I think the most important aspect of social responsibility for any corporation or for is paying your taxes. It is not up to the individual or the corporations to decide whether they pay or comply with the law. They can go through the political process and try to change the law, but to use secret tax havens to avoid paying their legally responsible taxes is, in my mind, unconscionable. And the fact is that one of the reasons that growth has been slow is that investment has been low. And one of the reasons that public investment has been low has been that limited amount of resources. And the secret tax havens are one of the reasons for the limitations of those resources. So whether we were in a recession as we were in 2009 or in a stronger economy, there is a need for public investment. The returns in public investment are enormously high, and it is a dereliction of public responsibility for these people to try to evade that responsibility by using the secrecy havens. And therefore, we have to shut down these secrecy havens.
The European Commission is looking principally at shell companies and that sort of structure. What about trust foundations? Do you think that those who are trying to avoid tax will try to find other avenues? And do all avenues need to be closed off at the same time?
Yeah, all avenues have to be closed off at the same time. And in our report, we talk about not only the shell corporations, but also the trusts, the foundations. And a lot of the arguments that have been used why you can't address the problems of trusts and foundations, I believe, and we believe, are not valid. And we, in our report, Overcoming the Shadow Economy, we explain why this has to be attacked on a global basis, why it has to be attacked comprehensively, as you say, through all vehicles, and it has to be attacked not only through the banking system, the financial, but also through the law firms and the others who service these secrecy havens. We outline a set of principles and some concrete proposals by which that can be done. Let me emphasize, though, that the secrecy havens are not just important because of the role they play in tax avoidance and tax evasion, but because of the role they play in corruption, bribery, conflicts of hiding conflicts of interest, a whole kind of money laundering of a whole variety of nefarious activities. One of the reasons that the Panama Papers got such attention is that they documented in such a comprehensive way the breadth and depth of the kinds of illicit activities that were supported by these secrecy havens. And so it is not just a matter of depriving governments of revenues necessary to address poverty, growth, and the basic functions of society, but it's because they undermine the functioning of a normal society.